What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Cafe and Views. Today we went to Dayglow and got their Defund the Military. Let's talk about the cafe first. So the cafe is located near a pretty busy street, but it's kind of on the corner, so it's easy to miss. When you first get there, it's below ground. It's a really small coffee shop. There's not much room in there. They do sell a lot of merchandise. They sell coffee, they sell candles, and all other kind of shirts and stuff like that. It's a pretty nice coffee shop. The inside definitely does it justice a lot more than the outside. The coffee came out pretty quick. It didn't take too long. It did take a little bit longer than the other coffee shops did, but overall it was a pretty quick process. We got our hands on the Defund the Military. I chose this coffee just because of the name. Like the previous coffee, it does have unique names, kind of names that go against the norm. So as you can see, the presentation of the coffee is pretty unique. There are factors in this coffee that make it different than the normal coffee. We're gonna start off by talking about acidity. I do get a lemony, citrusy note. It's more sour than sweet coffees. I don't really get any prominent sweet notes. It is pretty bitter. You can tell that this is a normal coffee with stuff that was added to it to make it taste a little bit different, but you still get that core bitterness feeling. Because it's bitter, it's more on the sour side, so it's at the complete opposite side from the sweet spectrum. This is more on top of the sourness. Still not like extreme sour where you're drinking it and you're squinting, but you will detect that it is sour. It is pretty sharp. When you're drinking it, you definitely get that sour punch. It's definitely doing a lot in your mouth. The ice is taken away from some of the sourness, so I'm sure if there was no ice in here, it would be a lot more sour than what it is currently. Because it's sour and not sweet, I'm gonna put acidity at about a 1.5 out of 5. Next up is gonna be aroma. I do get a lot of good notes coming from this coffee. I do have to put my nose really deep inside to really get the flavor. I can't really detect it anywhere close. I have to pretty much put my nose into it. But when I do, I am getting a lot of good aromas, a lot of good scents from it. All the ingredients that went into this coffee, you can kind of detect mixed together, and then you could unravel that to find out which individual ingredients went into it. It is semi-fruity, but I'm also getting some sort of nutty smell from it, kind of as if you were to smell like hazelnuts in a way. It's not really making me go in for more. It does have a pleasant smell. Just reading off what actually went into the coffee, you can detect that a lot of individual ingredients went into it, so you can kind of smell most of them, but not all of them. For aroma, I'm gonna put this coffee at about a 3 out of 5. Flavor, it's got a decent flavor. I believe that the aroma is better than the flavor. Usually you want that to be the opposite. You want to be able to taste the coffee and get a good sensation versus smelling the coffee. Flavor, it is balanced, and none of the flavors are kind of trying to compete with each other. They're all evenly balanced together, but I'm sure that the ice is also playing a big part into that. It's kind of watering down the coffee in a big way. Obviously the cup is not that big, and there's about maybe a third of it with ice, so it is, you are getting a lot of watery notes in the coffee. That might be why it's playing a big factor in terms of the flavor being not as good or not as prominent. Flavor is not really getting enhanced by the aroma, just because the aroma is there, but you have to put your nose deep into the coffee. Even when you're that close to a cup of coffee when you're taking a sip, you're not getting a lot of that aroma from it. It's kind of either or. You kind of have to choose if you want to detect the flavor or the aroma. You kind of have to focus when you're drinking the coffee. For flavor, I'm gonna put this coffee at about a 2 out of 5. Next up is gonna be body. The water in this coffee makes it feel like it actually has a watery consistency to it. It's pretty light in your mouth, just glides over the tongue. It doesn't stick around. It's not heavy. It's a pretty weightless coffee. In the beginning, the coffee is not resting on your taste buds. You're not getting much from it. You're getting more water, but about 5-10 seconds after, you kind of feel a little bit of that coffee stick to your tongue. So you are getting some remnants of the coffee when it's all said and done, but in the beginning, it doesn't stick. It doesn't wrap around your tongue. It doesn't do any of that until after. For body, I'm gonna put this coffee at about a 2 out of 5. For sweetness, the more you're drinking the coffee, the sweeter it gets and the less sour it gets, so that could be a good thing. It's a little off-putting when you're drinking about half the coffee. You're getting a lot of that sourness from it, and then about halfway when the ice is almost dissolved and the water is kind of mixed with the coffee, you're getting more of that sweetness flavor. That's kind of a little bit of a turn off. With the sweetness, you're not getting any of that sugar, any of that caramel. When you're detecting sweetness, you're getting that fake sweet, where you're getting that sweetness from other additives that went into the coffee, but it doesn't give you that sugar or that caramel or that kind of candy bar sweetness that you would normally get. Because it gets sweeter later on, instead of giving this coffee a 1 out of 5, I'm gonna bump it up to a 2 out of 5. Aftertaste, it doesn't hug your mouth, but it doesn't leave your mouth dry like a sour coffee would. Luckily, the sweetness in the coffee kind of saves it from that. It's not good when a coffee dries out your mouth because you want to keep drinking something to alleviate that, and so luckily this coffee doesn't do that. So you could kind of drink it slowly and your mouth will be fine. Even though it's sweet, it's still pretty harsh. It's not too harsh, but it's not smooth like you would want a coffee to be. It does kind of give you that off-putting sensation. Not really something that you want when you're drinking a coffee. This coffee is not wanting you to keep drinking it. You know, it kind of dissipates pretty quickly, not right away, but it does dissipate quicker than you would want it to. You would want the coffee to stick around and stay for at least a little bit longer at a bare minimum, but this coffee does not do that. Aftertaste, I'm gonna give this coffee about a 2.5 out of 5. For complexity, before I even drank the coffee, you could tell that the presentation was there, that the looks were there, so it kind of entices you to grab the coffee. If it was on the menu and you looked at it, you would want to order that coffee. Advertisement is there. It did make me want to buy the coffee. So even if the flavor and the aroma is not there, the presentation was, and it did its job where it made you buy the coffee. The taste is not complex, but the looks is. So complexity is about a 50-50 with this coffee. It's not a huge range of experience. You're not gonna get a whole roller coaster of sensation. It's still the same all throughout. Although in the beginning, it is a little bit more water-like. So as you get to the end, you kind of get a little bit of that flavor back. So kind of is a slight incline in the right direction. It's not an even plane. I wouldn't put it the same all throughout. It gets better the more you drink the coffee. The looks of this coffee saved the score of the complexity, so I'm gonna give complexity a 4 out of 5. For balance, it would be balanced if it was on a nice even plane, but like I mentioned, this coffee does get better over time, so it does put it at an incline. Instead of having like the bare minimum balance, it makes you be curious about the coffee. So if a coffee is even, you don't really get that. You just drink the coffee and do what you need to do at the same time. It does alternate from sour to sweet, sour in the beginning and then a little bit sweeter at the end. It is consistent in terms of keeping the same flavor all throughout. The flavor does stick out more at the end, but it still maintains that same flavor. You get a little bit in the beginning, but you get more of it at the end. And then in the beginning, it's a little bit more rough, sour, it's bitter, and then it starts evening out towards the end where it gets sweet, you get flavor, and you get a different kind of experience. For balance, I'm gonna put this coffee about a 2.5 out of 5. Forgiveness, because the coffee gets better and because of the looks, where I saw this coffee and I wanted to get it with the name and the looks, I would forgive some of the lesser components, that like the points that I took off. It does get forgiven a little bit, but not as much as other coffees would. So unfortunately for forgiveness, I'm only gonna put this coffee at about a 2 out of 5. Lastly, it's gonna be versatility. I'm gonna say that this coffee is versatile because there's not too much that goes on with it. It doesn't have a whirlwind of experiences like the last coffee did, the wake-up call. That coffee, it was changing and the flavor was there, the aroma was there, but with this coffee, it's just all pretty leveled out and even. You could be drinking this coffee when you're driving in your car, you could be drinking it when you're going for a walk, things like that. You don't want to be drinking this coffee when you're on a lunch or when you're on a dinner. You want something that adds to the flavor of the food or something important that you're gonna be doing. This coffee is not it. You can get this coffee if you don't want the flavor of coffee to change the food or to change the mood. If you just want to get a cup of coffee with your dinner and you just want to get a little bit energized and you want that caffeine kick, you could do this. For versatility, I'm gonna put this coffee at about 4 out of 5. To finish things up, Defund the Military got a 25.5 out of 50, or about a 51 out of 100. It did reach that 50% threshold. Anything below that and I think that it fails. So this coffee just passed, but this is a safe coffee. To me personally, I'm not too into safe coffees. I want coffees that will make me think. I would grab this coffee if I'm in West Hollywood, if I'm just going for a walk and I want to talk to someone and not really care about the coffee. But besides that, I don't really see myself picking this up if I'm doing something important or something that I want to enhance my experience. Thank you so much for watching Cafe and Views, where we went to Dayglow and picked up Defund the Military. Tune in next week to see where we're going next. Peace.